When the hero succeeds the temptation, he receives the ultimate prize. But what is that prize? Atonement, Apotheosis, and the ultimate boon, stage 9 of the hero's journey. This stage is all about that the hero receives his reward. Whatever he's set out to receive, and sometimes something that's even way beyond what he originally sought to get, is the reward that he will receive in this stage. There are 3 forms that Joseph Campell describes, and we all find them in different types of myths. So, atonement with the Father. Atonement with the Father is the point at which the hero, who was originally cast out into the world because of some problem, some difficulty, actually receives this atonement. The most famous example that you probably all know is the story of Luke Skywalker, who receives atonement with his father at this point where his father has helped him to defeat the Emperor, and now in this last moments of Darth Vader's life, Luke Skywalker and Darth Vader, who now really is Anakin Skywalker again, create this deep connection, and this is really one of the most emotional moments for some people in the entire movie. And the atonement with the father doesn't always have to be a father figure. So for example, Heracles receives atonement with the father, in this case with his mother, his stepmother, Hera, who hated him all his life, but eventually, at the end of his existence, in fact, after he dies and gone through all the suffering, she is willing to accept him and to let go of her hatred. And she even gives her daughter, Hebe, the goddess of eternal youth, to become his wife. Another famous example is the prophet Jonah. The prophet Jonah, who fled from God, basically, because he didn't want to do what God asked him to do. And then he does it, and then he's angry about the outcome, and he feels that God should have punished the people to whom he was sent as a messenger. And eventually he frowns outside of the city, and there is this gourd that grows, and God lets it grow, and God then, destroys it again, and he's really angry with God. And then God explains to him, look, you're angry for this gourd, and you feel I shouldn't have destroyed it. So much more, I didn't want to destroy all those people, so maybe you can understand this. And at the point that Jonah understands this, there's this moment of atonement. So there can be many, many, many different versions of this atonement, but usually it's somebody who had a disagreement or who was sent away, now comes back and is received and welcomed. But this is only one form this 9th stage can take. There's also the form of the apotheosis. The apotheosis is a becoming a greater or more divine being. In the Bible, we have 2 figures who are actually ascend into heaven, that is Enoch and Elijah. The Bible tells a little bit more about the situation with Elijah, and describes a flaming chariot that carries Elijah into heaven. So this is a human, mortal being, not dying, but entering into a higher form of living, entering into paradise. And the mystical texts describe that both these figures actually were transformed into archangels. With Heracles, we have a similar situation. Heracles burns to death, and the burning fire destroys everything that was mortal in this demigod. But he was a demigod, so he had an immortal part, and the immortal part was purified in the process, so he became completely immortal as a result. So that's the 2nd form of this stage. And the 3rd form really is receiving the ultimate boon. That's receiving a kind of divine gift that could be the golden fleece, or the elixir of life, or the Holy Grail. Anything like that can be the ultimate boon that the hero receives. For the pictogram of this stage, we see a female figure who shares this shares a chalice with a male figure, and we feel that this is a very good representation of this stage. Most cultures have the idea of the sanctity of a chalice of some form, or some form of sacred wine is very often an element that cultures have, a sacred beverage of some kind. By the way, did you know that chocolate, cacao, was a sacred beverage in the South American cultures? The chalice is a good representation, or the sacred cup is a good representation of this stage, because it's really up to you to decide what it contains, whether it is the Holy Grail, or whether it contains the elixir of life, or whether it is the sacred cup that's shared in a marriage ceremony between the male and the female figure. So there are a lot of possible interpretations here. And we show this cup as being radiant, as to imply that, in order to imply that it is some kind of sacred and higher form, in the same kind of radiance that we had in the beginning when the world was created and when the destiny of the hero was established. So in order to apply this stage in our own life, we need to complete the transformational process, and this is the moment where we actually get the results. So in a sports game, this is really winning the game. And in case of our example of flying a plane, that's really the process of landing successfully, arriving at the point where you wanted to arrive in the first place, safely landing. So in this stage, the hero has undergone the main transformation and now receives this ultimate boon, and he has reached a much deeper level of his heroic development than he did, for example, in stage 6. He's a completely transformed and new and much more complete and much more evolved type of hero than he was at an earlier point in the process. So I hope you enjoyed the video and the presentation. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you did like the video, and looking forward to see you again in the next video.